your favourite Atomic Blonde here with a 12 Monkeys review, and I'm talking about the TV series, not the 1995 film by Terry Gilliam. The show is obviously based on said film. The kind of core elements or the core plot line remains the same. At some point, a deadly virus is released and spreads across the world, wiping out pretty much like 98% of the population or 95% of the population, and all that's left are the people who are naturally immune. The first season very much kicks off in this sort of thread, similar to the film. So, as I said, it was a film back in 1995 by Terry Gilliam, starring Bruce Willis, Madeline Stowe, and Brad Pitt. There's some quite sort of fundamental differences. I mean, firstly, the character played by Brad Pitt, I think it's Jeffrey Goins, is replaced by a woman. I know, surprise, surprise, and becomes Jennifer Goins. But actually, I will say this casting is brilliant. The lady that plays Jennifer, Emily Hampshire, is fantastic, and how that role evolves through the 4 seasons is just spot on. All the cast, I have to say, are excellent in this show, and it's what really makes it work is that you really feel for the characters. You're behind the characters. You want them to succeed. Obviously, you don't want them to die in a terrible plague. But you get really, really invested in them. Even the ones that aren't so nice, they have character arcs. Todd Stashwick is absolutely fantastic in this. And the reason I am sort of doing this review is, as you know, I'm Youth for God season 3 fan. Sorry, not sorry. And it's really, I'd heard of the 12 Monkeys TV show. I don't think it was really shown in the UK, or it was certainly didn't really take off in the UK. And I must admit, when I heard about it, I was like, well, why do I want to see that? I know what happens in the film. But I really missed out there. And so it's written by Terry Matalas and Travis Fickett, who Travis also worked on Picard. As a writing team, I mean, they just seem to absolutely knock it out of the park. It's just so well choreographed, and over 4 seasons, it's the twists and the turns and say the investment. I love this series. I managed to find it online and was able to watch it. And I probably watched the 4 seasons over a couple of weeks. And that wasn't, I mean, I think the first season I watched in a day. And then the sort of second, third, and fourth, I kind of watched over a couple of days, over a few weeks. That's just pure because I didn't have time to watch it. Not that I wasn't enjoying it. I thoroughly got sucked into this world. Yeah, they did such a great job of you investing in these characters. The main leads are Aaron Stanford, who plays James Cole, who was Bruce Willis's character. Again, from the get-go, this is quite different. He's the sort of child of the apocalypse. He volunteers for this program to try and go back and stop the 12 Monkeys from releasing the virus. Whereas obviously in the film, Bruce Willis was a convict, and it was a way basically of getting out of his sentence. So he really didn't have a lot of choice. And again, we have Cassandra Rayleigh, who was Madeline Stowe's character, and I believe she was called Catherine in that. So it's a couple of changes, and Jeffrey is changed to Jennifer. I could absolutely see that if Terry Matalas wasn't able to get Amanda Plummer to play Vadik, Emily Hampshire, who plays Jennifer, I'm sure would have been his next choice. She's just that right amount of crazy. I think some people might find her irritating, but I loved her. And there's a great scene in season 4, because obviously she has mental issues. And what we find out through the course of the series is there are things called primaries, and they're sort of able to see time backwards and forwards. and kind of link all these events together, but they're all kind of disjointed, and they often get diagnosed with schizophrenia because they hear voices and are seeing things, but it's sort of time coming at them in the wrong order. So she has her mental health issues, and it's just a scene where she's breaking in this museum to steal an artifact, and you see her, she's all in like the leather outfit, and she's doing backflips and doing all the kind of entrapment type stuff and stealing the artifact, and she's badass. And then we got to the security guard who's watching all this on the monitor, and he's absolutely wetting himself. He is just creasing up, and you're like, what? And when you actually cut to the TV monitor and see her, all this badass stuff is just going on in her head, and she's just basically rolling around on the floor and doing these crap cartwheels. If we tried to do a backflip and you sort of land in a heap on the floor, and then rather than carefully cutting out the artifact, she just lobs like a brick through the thing. And then we sort of finally stops laughing long enough and kind of goes, oh shit, she's stolen something. But it's absolutely brilliant, and that's like very typical of her character, and I absolutely love this character. And as I was about to say earlier on, I was talking about Todd Stashwick. His character called Deacon, and again, I think his USP is definitely playing characters who you hate with a passion to begin with, but by the end you're rooting for them, and you've fallen in love with them, and you're absolutely devastated if anything happens to them. His character is absolutely brilliant. He's a complete psychopath, as a lot of them are, or basically again, sort of victims of the world that they're now in, all fighting for survival, trying to get what's left of the sort of food and resources after the apocalypse of the virus. And he leads a gang who just a bit like the saviors in The Walking Dead. They just go around and just take whatever they can, and you either join or if they feel that you're able enough to join, otherwise it's he's not a nice guy. But then as the series goes on, you learn more about his backstory and the others' backstory, and you sort of understand how people are what they are because of what they've been through. I think that the sort of main question this kind of poses is, can you actually change the past, or do you just become the events of the past? Which is kind of what was very much the theme in Terry Gillingham's film, where you see Bruce Willis has this vision since he was a kid of seeing someone killed at the airport, and spoiler, it's him. So as we go through the seasons, it's like, actually, can they change anything or not? And what I will say, and the reason I love this so much, is that the virus is just the tip of the iceberg in this show. So season 1 is very much about how do we stop the virus, but then the story takes on a life of its own, and kudos to Terry and Travis, where they take this. It's so much bigger than the film. There's obviously we've still got the army of the 12 monkeys, and their mission, basically, that the virus was just a means to an end. That wasn't the reason. The main focus. What they're actually trying to do is collapse time completely, to kind of live outside of space and time. That there's no death, there's no birth. That you just kind of exist outside of time. And by doing, there's a series of events that happens over 4 seasons that creates such a big paradox that this is ultimately what collapses time. So really, we're going through to say, are they, can they stop the paradoxes? What is the thing that's driving? What's the key thing that they can do that stops the future from happening? And I can't really, it's quite a difficult show to review, and I can't tell you a lot because it gives away the ending and will just spoil all the twists and turns. There's so many twists and turns in this. One thing from Picard that I learned, some common themes, but one of them with like Terry is if he does the setup, there is a payoff. And what I was so impressed with, that by the season finale, every single thread that was started from season 1 all the way through got wrapped up in season 4. There wasn't a single story arc or thread that wasn't explained. You didn't see how, you saw how it played out. I'd say you saw how things played out. It was it wasn't just constantly telling us all the time, oh, this happened or that happened. We actually see these things happen, whether that's flashbacks or they actually travel back in time. Because in this, they're able to go backwards and forwards in time. And it was great. So it's very, very, very timey-wimey.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
Timey-wimey, very timey-wimey, and if you don't like timey-wimey, you are going to hate this show. Personally, I love all of that. You have to sit and pay attention. You can't be on your phone. You need to be watching what's going on, but it's not overly convoluted. It's not so, there's so many story arcs that you can't keep track of them all. It's actually very restrained in that way for such a complicated story that it's telling. It's actually quite restrained that each episode, it kind of goes, okay, well, we're telling this segment, and we're telling this segment. And it's a couple of times where you think, oh, well, what's happened with that? They've completely forgotten about that. And then lo and behold, somewhere down the line, boom, and you go, I haven't forgotten. Because there was one scene, I think, in season 3. And I think by the final episode or the penultimate episode, I was like, they've forgotten about that. They haven't gone back to that. They've completely forgotten about that. And then boom, there it was. And I was like, kudos, kudos, kudos. The strength of the actors and the quality of the writing is why this show works so well. The sort of, it's very much an ensemble piece, even though you've got Aaron Stanfield, say, as James Cole. He's very, very much the obviously the star, but everything's very ensemble. Every single character has a role that is important to the show. The sort of lead 5 or 6 characters, they all have a purpose. They change throughout. They're not the same people they are at the start as they are at the end. They all go on their own journeys, and what was important at the start changes, because we're human beings, and some of them become parents, or they lose children, and that very much obviously changes your world outlook. And I think all of that was handled really well. That was the other thing I was going to say with Terry Matalas, having watched Picard and now this. He very much leans into, or has a very strong penchant, should I say, for writing relationships, certainly like parent-child relationships, and not necessarily little children, but becoming a father, what that means, protecting a child. You're no longer just looking out for yourself. A mother, losing their daughter. All these relationships around sort of nature and nurture, and which one's more important. These themes come through really strongly in Picard, even more so in this show with the dynamics and as the storyline plays out. This does seem to be something that really keys in for him, and I think it's a very human trait and something most people can relate to. Either you're a mother, or you're a daughter, or you're a father, or your son, or everybody knows those kind of dynamics from one perspective or the other. And I thought these were all done really well, and very realistic. Some of it's a little bit extreme because of the world they're living in, but they're very human responses. That if parents will take a bullet for their child, and it's absolutely shown to bigger or lesser degrees in this, and and obviously the sort of morality itself. What do you do if it's meant for the greater good? How far would you go? Would you kill an innocent person if it stops the world from being destroyed? If they don't know their role in it, or they inadvertently are caught up in something, so it poses lots of these questions as well. It's a really engaging, clever piece of writing, and I really enjoyed it. I'm kind of gutted that I didn't see it when it first came out, but I'm so glad I found it now through, you know, Terry Matalis and seeing his work. He definitely deserves to have more work or pick up more work in Hollywood, and you can really see his strength of a showrunner in this. Like I say, every single thing. I'd love to have seen the board in the writer's room of how all this like plots out and how everything hangs together and how it's all pulled together. It was great fun. There's a cameo from Madeleine Stowe in this. She plays a completely different character. But again, you know, just nice callbacks. What I will say, which I think which was a really good call, is it doesn't have the look or the feel of the Gillingham movie, and I think that was the right thing because his style is so unique, and obviously very him. I think if they tried to emulate it or kind of went as gritty or as dark with the TV show, I'm not sure people would have stuck with it because it's quite a heavy film, and obviously the subject matter of this show is quite heavy, you know, the end of the world. So, you know, it's got its own style, it's got its own cinematography, it's really much got its own feel, but the sort of the core principles or the core themes of the film are still there. But say, as I said, built on absolutely brilliantly. So yeah, I think it was definitely a great call. Obviously, you've got lots of dynamics going on in this show, and like I say again, the interactions, the relationships between the ensemble cast are so good, and you know, lots of very heart-wrenching things going on. You know, pretty much every time they go back in time, every time Cole goes back in time, if he stops the virus or he stops the 12 monkeys, their future will cease to exist because of the preset time. So every time he those people again, because he, you know, he may not be born in the future. If he is, well, how would they even all know each other? And it starts off with they get a, same as the film, they get a message from the past with Cassandra saying, you know, this has happened, you need to send Cole. And then, of course, of events in the future, he ends up at this facility with the doctor, and they find out his name, and they realize that this is the Cole they need to send back. So that's how he kind of gets recruited into programs, again, voluntarily. And he knows basically if he goes back and he goes and meets Cassie, obviously they fall in love, same as the film, and various, that spins out various things. But I thought, even though they're kind of the love interest and they've got a great, you know, good chemistry, his relationship with Jennifer really steals the show. I really love the relationship that she has, and the relationship she builds with Deacon. It was just so endearing. You got this psychopath and this head case with this absolutely this lovely kind of relationship. Not a physical relationship, but like sort of friends, and they sort of almost brother sisterly. There's almost this sort of kinship between them. But the relationship between James and Jennifer and how that starts, he finds her in the asylum as a means to try and get access to her father, who they think who is part of the 12 monkeys. They think he might even be the one that's creating the virus. And how this just evolves, and how they're always there for each other. And again, they end up with quite an endearing sort of brotherly, sisterly relationship by the end of it. You know, given it's timey-wimey, you know, lots of things happen to these characters. We lose some of these characters, then they come back again. Some of them don't come back again. Some of them come back, but they know they've got to sacrifice themselves to keep the timeline running as it is. And again, it's like, you know, what would you do? You know, you're faced with all these challenges of trying to save the world, and you know, needs of the one and the many. Obviously, Terry being a big Star Trek fan, you know, those themes run through this. So all in all, I thought it was 4 great seasons. Every season is strong. There wasn't one that you kind of go, oh, 1 and 2 is good, 3. I enjoyed all 4 seasons. I don't know if it was originally meant to run for 5. I'm not sure. but we got a full story in those four seasons. So again, kudos to the writers that if they did have to wrap it up quicker, which I think they did, because this was originally on the Sci-Fi Channel, and we know what Sci-Fi Channel's like for cancelling stuff, even if it's successful, Gate and things like that. So yeah, they've done a fantastic job of keeping the pacing right, giving us twists and turns, not answering everything at once, but everything is answered, and that's why I actually really enjoyed this show. As you know, I'm a bit of a mystery box sucker, but they drive me insane. There's nothing worse when you stick with something and you get to the end and they don't bloody tell you what it was about. Or, I mean, I don't mind things sort of being a bit open to interpretation, but you know, the one we all talk about, Lost, they started storylines, they forgot about them, and at the end so many things were left unanswered that it was just, you know, so infuriating. You know, what was a corporation? Don't know. What was the island? Don't know. What was it Walt? Don't know. What was the smoke? Don't know. It could go on and on and on. So yeah, 10 out of 10 for the ending. I love the season finale. I love that everything resolved. But what you have to watch and find out is basically, like I said, they're trying to create this paradox. Now, can they stop this paradox, or does everything you do basically create the paradox? Do you just become part of the events? So in the film, they weren't successful. And you're just going to have to go watch it to find out where this one lands. I ain't going to tell you. But it does wrap up everything. So it's definitely worth checking out. It is out on DVD. I couldn't find it on, it was on Sky, on Peacock for a while. I don't think it's on there anymore. I managed to find it for free on the good old internet, something called Internet Archive, HD quality, no adverts, really, really good. So I highly recommend this show. If you like your sci-fi, you like your action, you like your timey-wimeys, you like your Doctor Who's of this work, good Doctor Who's, obviously, and you love Picard Season 3, this is right up your alley. Fantastic performances. As I said, Emily Hampshire could have played Vedic quite easily. Stashwick, fantastic as Deacon. I loved that character. And there was a few moments where I was just like, again, more Liam Shaw moments. I was like, buddy, I have to say, I think Terry Matalis, I don't know what Todd Stashwick has done to Terry Matalis, but boy, does he pick on his characters. The ringer on this, absolutely through the ringer. But yeah, you're going to have to watch it to find out exactly what happens to poor Deacon. Yeah, so really enjoyed this show. It's definitely worth a watch. Try and get it on DVD, or say have a play around the internet, see if you can find it on Internet Archive. Thank you, Terry Matalis and Travis Fickett, for yet another great series. Sorry I was late to the party, but it's definitely one to check out. So go, enjoy, have a great week. Go check out 12 Monkeys. Do yourself a favour. Bye.